Hello everyone, welcome back to Allcarnews, and today we are going to take a quick look at the Chevrolet Trax and the Buick Envista, two of GM's hottest new entry-level vehicles across their brands here in the US, and there's a pretty big amount of differences between the two visually and just in terms of size and dimensions actually, even though they are essentially the same vehicle at the core. So let's go take a dive in at this Buick Envista Avenir as well as this Chevrolet Trax 2RS. Starting with the exterior dimensions, the 2024 Envista is actually 4 inches longer than the 2024 Trax, and it measures in around at 182.6 inches compared to the Trax's 178.6 inches. This is actually largely just due into just the overhangs of the vehicle and not the wheelbase whatsoever, as they are identical, and this also plays into the Envista's kind of coupe-like SUV styling versus the Trax's more conventional SUV styling. The Trax also boasts an inch less of front overhang as well as 2.9 inches of less rear overhang, so you can kind of see a lot where of that extra length in the Envista is coming from. Now, styling-wise outside, you can definitely see the unique differences on the Chevrolet Trax and the Buick Envista. The Envista is definitely more of a reserved, luxury-ish looking, sleeker, style-focused vehicle over the Trax. This Trax actually looks quite good, but it definitely is a little bit more conservative in this kind of outlandish design that we're getting from the Envista. It looks a little bit more typical SUV, typical crossover style vehicle. You can get it in the sporty or 2RS trim, you can get it in the active trim as well, but that also plays in with the Envista as well. You can get it in this nice luxury Avenir trim, or you can get it in a little bit more of a sporty or ST trim as well as the base trims of the Envista. Now, in terms of cargo space between the two, the Trax actually is going to be a little bit better in terms of cargo space than the Envista, just because of that sloped roofline that the Envista is coming with, but it generally doesn't really make that big of a difference. And the real big shocker here is that rear headroom in the two is actually pretty much the same. Even though the Envista has a little bit of a sloped roofline, it really does not affect rear headroom that too much. And that also goes with the rest of the interior space, as they both have incredibly large rear seats, which really is impressive for this class. You have a lot of legroom, a lot of space to move around, a flat floor because they are both front-wheel drive only vehicles, and I think this is a real big highlight of both of the vehicles in this rear space. It isn't really a high-tech space. You don't have any rear heated seats or multi-zone climate controls or anything, but it is a generally nice space to be in terms of fitting people in, and I think GM really succeeded there. So generally, yes, GM did have to make some strategic cuts to kind of keep the price down. There's no rear wiper for the Envista, for example, no auto-up windows on both the Envista and Trax. The Envista comes with a single-zone climate control with no air vents for the second row. There's no navigation system in neither the Envista nor the Trax, unless you are using like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. One big difference on the interior of the Envista, though, is that we have additional acoustic material to kind of make the cabin just a little bit quieter than the Trax, and the interior of the Envista is just styled, I think, a little bit nicer than the Trax is. There's a little bit more better blend of materials going on, even though they're all essentially all plastics. They kind of make better use of their different types of plastics and designs going on there, even though the two do share an infotainment system. Pretty much all the basic controls are the same between the Trax and the Envista, as like I said, as well as the digital cluster and infotainment system as well. General build quality is fine, but these are entry-level vehicles and they don't feel super high-end whatsoever. And they both kind of do share some of the little technological glitches that I have noticed over my time of driving them over the course of 2 weeks respectively, just with Apple CarPlay and I guess Android Auto as well, just randomly glitching, as they are wireless and kind of just shutting down. And I have had some cases of the screen and even the information cluster in front of the driver kind of just being a little bit slow on laggy on startup sometimes, especially in a colder weather condition. Otherwise, pretty good for the two vehicles. You are getting a lot standard on these cars, which is really fantastic. Both vehicles are also offering a lot of great features. Unfortunately, this Envista does not have a sunroof, though you can get it, and you can also have one of the Trax as well, but you are getting a lot of safety features as well, such as rear cross traffic alert, heated and power adjustable mirrors, lane change alert, blind spot, adaptive cruise control, even rain sensing wipers, depending on what packages you're getting, so that's really nice. And of course, the two do share an identical powertrain, so here we're going to have the same thing, a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine making 136 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque going to the front wheels only. It's our only engine option here in the US. This is paired to a 6-speed automatic gearbox, and 0 to 60 mph is going to happen around 9.3 seconds. But what is a significantly more, I think, crucial time, 0 to 50 miles per hour, just a casual highway speed, is only around 6.7 seconds, so that's honestly not too bad. Fuel economy is okay on these two, 20 mpg city and 32 mpg highway, I believe, are the just general numbers you're going to be seeing across the board, which, yes, there are good numbers, but in my day-to-day driving, I've seen actually a little bit less numbers. On occasion, I did take the Trax on a road trip, and I got around the 28 to 27 mpg range on that around almost 400 mile-ish trip there. Now, in terms of driving the two, there actually are quite big differences between driving the Trax and the Envista, and this is, I think, where separates the vehicles even more so than the styling. Available on the Envista is something called a Watts Link rear suspension, and this is only available on the top trim Avenir, as well as an option, I believe, on the ST package. And essentially what this is that both the Trax and the Envista use a torsion beam rear suspension, so instead of having an independent rear suspension or even like a live axle, you just have this kind of beam that kind of connects the two rear wheels. And what a Watts Link suspension is doing is that it kind of adds an additional little control or kind of spring system within the center of it to kind of balance out some of the side-to-sides movements. And this actually does help improve ride quality on the Envista. It does make it feel a little bit softer, and there are actually also softer suspension bushings on the Envista, and like I mentioned earlier, a little bit more of that sound deadening, and that's going to make the Envista feel a little bit more softer. You're going to definitely feel more body roll in the corners compared to the Trax. And I guess if you want to relatively talk about these two vehicles, the Trax is going to feel relatively a little bit more on the sportier or a little bit firmer side than the Envista, and that may be some things that people will like more so than the softer side of the Envista, and then vice versa as well. So you are getting two different flavors between the two vehicles, and I do like that they are kind of differentiating the two in this way and not just in terms of looks. I also noticed this right away when driving the two on the roads. I definitely noticed the softer and more insulated cabin of the Envista versus the Trax, especially on the highway. That's something you're going to notice significantly. So what are some two big highs and lows of these two vehicles? Well, they both are very affordable vehicles. Both this Trax and Envista that I was able to have are pretty much almost fully loaded around the $30,000 to $32,000 range. But as we all know, you can get them still pretty well equipped under $25,000, and even solidly well equipped around $25,000 to $26,000. You're getting a lot of space, you're getting stylish looks, and yes, you may not be able to get all-wheel drive or more power. They are generally pretty nice entry-level vehicles for a lot of people, and this is exactly what the market needs now. We have affordable, well-equipped vehicles with technology, a lot of space, good-looking style, and hopefully they will be dependable down the road, but we're going to have to see how that ends up panning out, as they did just come out, and we can't really get a good sense of general long-term reliability as of right now, but people seem to be enjoying them. They're selling incredibly well, and if you are looking for this entry-level kind of small crossover vehicle, you definitely have to consider the Trax and the Envista, and especially compared to things like a Nissan Kicks or a Kia Soul, some of those main competitors, or even a Hyundai Venue in this segment. They're really strong competitors, and I was very fortunate for General Motors to lend me both of them to review. As always, thank you guys for watching this video, and stay tuned for more coming on Allcarnews. Cheers.